Day 8 of the Diddy trial wrapped up with prosecutors unveiling the final known audio recording of Prince, buried deep within the case files. This unexpected piece of evidence stunned the entire courtroom and left Diddy's legal team scrambling. Not even his powerhouse attorneys, Mark Agnifilo, Tenny Geragos, and Brian Steele, could have anticipated what the recording would expose. From never-before-heard audio to leaked witness testimonies and even an alleged arson incident,
side of Cassie that really none of us have ever heard before.
First Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your security in the party. That is the one thing that I thought was odd because, you know, I came one time with my security and no other security other than Diddy's security is allowed to be inside the building. I mean, I saw Jay-Z and TD Jakes in there. Every major celebrity you can think of who may or may not get along may be on the other side of that gate with no security. And so now as you see this unfold, my wonder is, well, why weren't...
Diddy reportedly hosted one of his notorious freak-off parties at Prince's residence. Only Prince wasn't there. He intentionally stayed away, fully aware of Diddy's reputation and had
Diddy was
already
going to
flipped
come
the
after
script.
him.
Hidden cameras inside the house captured everything that unfolded, and Prince had every intention of using that footage to expose Sean Combs. He knew the risks and understood that standing up to the entire entertainment industry would require everything. But he was ready. On Thursday, prosecutors introduced audio in court where Prince detailed his plan and warned that he knew Diddy would eventually come for him.
All right, I'm going to roll the clip now. Here we go.
Individuals who were allegedly paid for their silence. Prince mentioned specific amounts, $2 million to one person, $1.3 million to another, that perfectly matched financial records the prosecution had presented earlier in the trial. I've seen the payments, Prince stated. I've seen the NDAs they signed. This isn't just rich people behaving badly, it's systematic and calculated. The precision of Prince's knowledge suggested he had access to information that only an industry insider could know. As the recording continued, Prince's voice grew more somber. I'm making this recording because I'm afraid to speak out publicly. The power structure in this industry protects people like him. Nobody wants to believe what happens behind closed doors. The recording ended with words that sent chills through the courtroom. If anything happens to me, make sure this gets to the right people. This isn't just about protecting myself, it's about protecting everyone who hasn't been able to speak between Diddy.
So Diddy was just eliminating his competition or anybody who got in his way. What a menace P. Diddy was. I feel blessed never having to encounter something as evil as him. All right, if you didn't know, now you know. There you have it. That's the scoop.
Before wrapping up her testimony, Cassie dropped a bombshell by naming Usher, claiming he witnessed Diddy assaulting, violating, and threatening her, but chose to stay silent. According to Cassie, Usher didn't intervene or speak out. Instead, he allegedly helped cover up Diddy's abuse and ignored her cries for help. Meanwhile, audio recordings of these incidents, where Cassie's screams can clearly be heard, were played in court, leaving jurors stunned. One particularly disturbing clip aired today, and while the exact reaction inside the courtroom wasn't fully clear, the weight of the evidence left a heavy impression, adding even more intensity to an already explosive trial.
In this recording, she is screaming at him, saying that she'll kill him or that she'll have someone else take care of him and kill him. And it's a difference.
The shocking recording played in the courtroom today. I don't know in the courtroom if there was a reaction, but kind of give the context to that and what the reaction was.
One of the things that the government keeps bringing up is that Cassie felt like she was being blackmailed by Combs, that he had videos of these drug-fueled sex parties known as freak-offs, and that he threatened to release those videos publicly, and that at one point he even showed them to people, and that this was to embarrass her, to silence her, and to force her to keep having freak-offs, that he hung it over her head. And in one shocking moment today, I was in the courtroom, they actually played audio of Cassie screaming at a man named Sujit. This was after she had learned that he might have actually seen one of those freak-off videos. But in that audio recording, that Cassie actually was the one who recorded herself talking to Sujit. In this recording, she is screaming at him, saying that she'll kill him or that she'll have someone else take care of him and kill him. And it's a different side of Cassie that really none of us have ever heard before. I definitely don't think it's the last time that we're going to hear that audio recording. I think at some point we'll see the defense or even the prosecution circle back to that. The overall vibe today in the courtroom is that Combs' defense team is struggling. There's a lot of stopping and starting because the prosecutors are constantly objecting to the evidence that they're trying to admit. The judge is even getting frustrated at one point, saying that we need to set ground rules.
Dawn, Richard revealed she wasn't the only one who witnessed Sean Diddy Combs' abuse. On her second day of testimony in the federal trial against the music mogul, the 41-year-old recalled a 2010 incident where Combs allegedly punched then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura in the stomach during a private conversation at a restaurant in West Hollywood. She stated that Usher was also present at the time. According to NBC News, which had a reporter inside the courtroom, Richard said, "Mr. Combs punched Cassie in the stomach. They were having a private talk, and then he hit her. She doubled over and left right away." Richard, formerly of The Girl, group Danity Kane from Combs' Making the Band show, also claimed other celebrities, including singer Neo, record executive Jimmy Iovine, and rapper Big Daddy Kane, were there as well. After Cassie and Richard left the restaurant, another violent episode allegedly occurred. Richard testified, "We got into the car to go back to her place. Combs grabbed her, slapped her, hit her in the mouth, and told her to shut up. No one said a word." Prosecutors later presented evidence seized from Combs' hotel room at the time of his arrest: cash, drugs, weapons, and hundreds of bottles of baby oil, painting a disturbing picture. Despite being indicted, Diddy reportedly continued his violent behavior. According to Homeland Security, DNA from the arrest scene confirmed that multiple women had been with him that day.
First look inside Combs' Miami mansion the day federal agents busted the gate open last year to raid it. A federal agent testifying about the evidence: guns and ammo seized from Diddy's home that were found near alleged freak-off supplies, which included dozens of bottles of baby oil and boxes of platform heels, bondage restraints, and bundles of rope. Also photographed as evidence that day, motivational messages on Combs' bathroom mirror that included "You a legend" and "Upward motion," and drugs. Lots of drugs, including ones found in plastic bags inside a Gucci bag, and orange tablets with the Tesla logo that tested positive for ecstasy.
So we just got new exhibits today. Take a look at these photos that prosecutors have just released. They're pictures of Diddy's former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, with what she says are bruises on her back and legs, which you can see here, and also a gash above her eye. Also released today, some pictures from when Diddy was arrested in September of last year at the Park Hyatt Hotel in New York. And a special agent with Homeland Security testified last week that some of the items found included baby oil, drugs, these pink packets of ketamine. There's also this image of a knife wedged in a door. Now, Combs, we aren't sure if he's going to be taking the stand in his own defense, but he denies all of the allegations against him. But will all of these witnesses really prove the government's charges that he was running this criminal empire and that he's guilty of sex trafficking?
One of the male escorts allegedly hired by Diddy to abuse Cassie has also taken the stand, and his testimony is deeply disturbing. According to reports, Cassie would visibly wince and sigh each time Diddy instructed the escort to be intimate with her. In her own testimony, Cassie described how just the thought of being treated like an object, used and passed around, made her stomach turn. Still, she felt powerless to refuse, fearing what Diddy might do if she said no.
Next up on the stand, after Cassie's mom stepped down, a man who goes by the name, wait for it, The Punisher. The Punisher is an exotic dancer and former sex worker whose real name is Sheree Hayes. Mr. Hayes told the jury that he got his nickname playing basketball, but his photos, they seem to tell a different story for why he may be using that name today. Kind of safe for work, almost not safe for work. I wouldn't put it up at work, but that's the Punisher, y'all. Mr. Punisher testified that he was hired by Diddy and Cassie for 8 to 12 different times, things like episodes. And he was meant to create a sexy scene that would last for hours. He said that Diddy called all the shots in these episodes. He didn't call them freak-offs, but he described what we've heard as freak-offs. He never saw any cameras, he said. He didn't see any violence. And he said, although Cassie would sometimes wince or sigh at some of the sex directions that came from Diddy. He said it didn't seem as though Cassie was there against her will. Again, this is a prosecution witness, so that's kind of, that's on the fence there. He does certainly corroborate the freak-offs and what happened in the freak-offs, but that whole business about, to him, he wasn't sure if Cassie was into it or not, but he did hear that she winced and that she sighed as Diddy gave a lot of those directions. By the way, the Punisher also said that he never saw Diddy take drugs, never saw that he seemed drunk or high, which is exactly what prosecutors are trying to show, that this was not just an out-of-control, party of an enlisted megastar, but instead was a clear-eyed criminal enterprise.
Cassie felt completely alone as Diddy worked to isolate her, targeting anyone she tried to lean on, even her own mother. Cassie's mom testified that she feared for her daughter's safety and was certain Diddy posed a serious threat. At one point, Diddy even threatened her directly, demanding $20,000 if she ever wanted to see Cassie alive. It wasn't about the money, he didn't need it. It was a cruel tactic to humiliate Cassie's family and make her feel even more trapped and alone.
They brought in Cassie's mom. She was on the stand today as well. She talked about having to take out a $20,000 loan just to prevent Diddy from putting out a sex tape that involved her daughter, Cassie. Talk about some of those details that we heard as well. I mean, for any mother, this has to be a nightmare situation.
That's exactly right. And I think that was, you want to talk about effective and non-effective testimony. I think that was very effective because, again, to go back to what the defense is trying to paint here, that this was Cassie and she knowingly and wittingly went along with these things. But to hear mom say, look, I had to go and I had to come up with this money so I could pay Diddy to protect my daughter. That goes against what the defense has said. And it, I think, shows that you've got somebody who was very worried about some of this material being seen by the public. And that doesn't sound like somebody who wittingly went along with some of the things that she was asked by her boyfriend to do. So I think that was very powerful testimony. And it certainly goes to show what the prosecution is trying to say, that again, that Cassie was coerced into doing these things, and she was message that if you don't do what I want you to do, me being Diddy, then you're going to really have to deal with some very substantial repercussions here. And I think that was the point of mom's testimony.
Absolutely. And that's some of the footage of Cassie's mother leaving the courthouse.
Diddy knew exactly what he was doing. He deliberately abused Cassie in front of others to send a clear message. No one around him would come to her aid. Every action was calculated to break her spirit from within. These acts of public humiliation were part of a pattern designed to isolate her, making her feel completely alone and helpless. At one point, Cassie even cried out for help, desperately pleading for someone to save her. But no one responded.
So he would start to see all of these things take place. He was on direct describing an incident on a private plane between Sean and Cassie, in which he described Sean as holding up like a rocks glass, and heard Cassie then say, isn't someone seeing this? Talking about a beating that was taking place right there in the moment. Now, George eventually left because he said he was tired of hiding the domestic violence from everyone. So he's a former executive assistant to Combs, and he testified that he witnessed Combs be violent with Ventura while on that private jet in 2015. He did hear that glass break and saw Combs standing over Ventura. He told the jury that Ventura did scream, isn't anyone seeing this? So that's been some of the testimony. He has testified to several incidents of domestic violence that he saw at the hands of Sean Combs toward Cassie. And then also a name we've heard in this case, Gina. Julie, when Cassie was on the stand, as well as one of her friends, that was Carrie Morgan, she was saying that Gina was a real problem. George Kaplan was talking about some domestic violence that he witnessed toward Gina as well, a time when Sean was throwing apples really hard at Gina, and Gina was covering her face.
Forensic psychologist Dr. Dawn Hughes took the stand in the trial, and her testimony shed light on how Diddy's abuse created a situation where Cassie felt trapped and unable to leave. She provided the jury with important insight into how abuse can take root and persist in intimate relationships, helping them better understand the dynamics at play. Her expert analysis offered crucial context for the jurors to consider alongside the evidence. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team pointed out that the rapper has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and struggles with anger management.
She did not interview Cassie, any victims in this case. She was providing general testimony about victims of domestic abuse, how they cope, what different levels of abuse there are, how do people recover from it, the trauma they experience, really what was taking place in regard to the back and forth, the cross as well as the direct, was a lot of attacking by defense counsel as to her credibility and her qualifications. We do have some testimony we can put up for you, though, on this when she was on the stand this morning. Let's go ahead and put that up, and I can tell you exactly a little bit more about it. So Hughes confirmed that she has never testified in the defense of a man accused of a sex crime. This was on the cross-examination. I don't evaluate offenders, is what she responded with. Hughes maintained that prosecutors have not discussed specifics of this case with her. This cross-examination was done by an attorney named Mr. Bach. And you could tell Judge Ashley when he was doing his cross-examination, he is very skilled at cross-examining expert witnesses. He again brought up how much money she is being paid and how much she makes from really just being an expert witness in trials. So he was asking her about that.
But something interesting came up was when Combs' defense team referenced his bipolar disorder. And that's really the first time that we're hearing that he might actually have a diagnosed clinical condition. We know that he has talked about his temper, his mood swings. I mean, that's how he got his nickname, right? Puffy, because he huffs and he puffs. But it's no laughing matter. We know that he's capable of incredibly terrifying violence. Just take a look at that 2016 security footage of Cassie being brutally beaten by him. And so, now we're learning that perhaps he might have been on medication. He sought treatment, and he may have
bipolar disorder and other mental health conditions do not justify the horrific acts Diddy committed. It's also worth noting that his legal team once attempted to portray him as someone who simply took too many drugs and made poor choices. But the abuse Diddy inflicted on Cassie spanned over a decade. An extended pattern of control and violence that cannot be explained away or excused by any condition or momentary lapse.
Well, you started to list it, Eva, the guns, the drugs, the freak-off supplies. And I think what was most striking, perhaps, for the jury to see was the proximity. There were the AR-15 style assault rifles right in the same shelving unit as the baby oil and the Astroglide and the platform heels and the lingerie. And then in another part of the house, there was the loaded .45 caliber handgun that was found in a red suitcase. All of this was being kept by Combs for what reason we don't know, but federal prosecutors, I think, are hoping to make a link, especially between the guns and the freak-offs, because their whole theory of the case is that Combs used violence and the threat of violence to coerce women, particularly Cassie Ventura, but other women as well, into these sexual performances.
Abilities increased. He began to set up the hotel rooms. And what did he say that he would use to set up the hotel rooms? He said they would have what was called a hotel bag. Inside that hotel bag would be things like the baby oil, the Astroglide, liquor, drugs, he mentioned. So he mentioned things were taking place behind closed doors. And he said he wanted to do this, put the room back together as perfectly as possible, because he didn't want anyone selling any kind of photographs of the hotel room to try to make Sean Combs look bad.
When Cassie tried to move on and started seeing Kid Cudi, Diddy responded with violence, breaking into Cudi's home and setting his car on fire. It was a calculated move to make Cassie feel trapped, as if there was no escape. Kid Cudi testified that Diddy entered his house, locked his dog in the bathroom, and disabled all the security cameras. Although an investigation followed, Diddy was never held accountable. He's managed to slip through the cracks of multiple investigations, raising serious questions about whether someone on the inside has been helping him avoid consequences.
Scuddy had a brief relationship with Cassie Ventura during this time, and Combs allegedly made threats against him because of it. Scuddy testified that he believes Combs actually broke into his house and testified that a few months later, a Molotov cocktail was placed on his Porsche, damaging his car. He told the jury he reached out to Combs after his car caught fire and described him with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges, and his defense team says any sexual encounters were all consensual. Legal contributor Eric Faddis joins me now for more. So, Eric, what do you think? How does Muscatti's testimony impact Combs' arson charges and the racketeering conspiracy counts that he faces, you think?
Yeah, Kira, I think we're firmly moving into RICO territory here. We're getting past some of the sex trafficking allegations, talking about a criminal enterprise that was allegedly engaged in committing crimes. And so Kid Cudi's testimony goes to trying to prove some of those predicate offenses. He says that Diddy and his team burglarized his home after Diddy found out that he was dating Cassie Ventura, and then shortly thereafter blew up his vehicle, which goes to arson. And so that was really the thrust of the testimony. That was the purpose for putting him on. There were some points scored by defense as well. It was some colorful testimony.
Diddy's lawyers claim he had no involvement in the incident, but according to Kid Cudi, years after the alleged arson, Diddy personally apologized for the whole thing. If he were truly innocent, would he feel the need to say sorry at all? It's a detail that raises serious doubts about the narrative his legal team is trying to present.
So he said that when he got that phone call from Cassie that he sprung into action, although he was confused about why it would matter if Sean Combs knew that he was dating Cassie, because he had no reason to believe that they were still romantically involved. Remember, Kid Cudi had been dating Cassie, he says, for about a year at this point. He went and he got her from her apartment and he took her to the only place he thought would keep her safe, which is the Sunset Marquis. It's a hotel in LA. So in this phone call with Cassie, she says, look, Diddy knows we're dating. He asked for your address. I gave him your address, and I'm so scared right now. So he goes and he picks her up at her place and takes her to the Sunset Marquis Hotel. While they're there, they got a phone call from a friend of Cassie's who said, I'm sitting in front of your house right now, Kid Cudi. Sean Combs and an associate of his are inside your house. And that's when he was like, what is going on? He said he was angry. So he gets in his car. He said it was a Porsche 911 convertible. And on his way to the house, that's when he's starting to get worried about, what am I walking into? Could Combs have weapons? Who else could be there at the house? Could this turn violent? Although he said he did want to fight Combs for breaking into his house. And so he called 911, but he also called Combs and he said, why are you in my house? And he said, I'm on my way. So when he got to his house, Diddy wasn't there. What he did notice was that his surveillance cameras were turned the other way. Some Christmas presents were unwrapped from Chanel for his family. And that also his dog was in a bathroom with the door closed.
Last week, we heard Cassie testify about Combs threatening to set fire to his Porsche. Talk to me about what he said inside today about that incident.
Kid Cudi and Cassie stopped dating after this whole incident in which Combs allegedly broke into his house. So on this particular night, he's staying at an ex-girlfriend's house. And while he's there, early in the morning, he gets a call from his dog's babysitter who's house sitting for him and says, your car's on fire in the driveway. So, he instructs her to call 911. The authorities and the fire department show up at his house. And then he calls a friend to go there and start taking pictures of his car. When he gets there, authorities are already at the scene. And what they find is something called a Molotov cocktail. That was a bottle with liquid in it and a rag that had been set on fire, and somebody had cut the roof of his convertible and dropped it inside. And then we saw pictures of all this damage today, and he said that unfortunately his car could not be repaired. So police collected all of this evidence, and there was some sort of an investigation. But today we heard on cross-examination Brian Steele, who's a very famous attorney out of Atlanta who represented Young Thug in his state RICO case. And he got up there and really tried to poke holes in this idea that Combs was the one who destroyed his Porsche. And he said, look, there was an investigation, nobody was charged, and they even took DNA evidence and fingerprints at the scene. And what connects Combs to this incident, right? Because all we really know is that Cassie said that Combs threatened to do this, but there isn't any security footage. There isn't any proof that Combs either told somebody to do it or actually did it himself.
Even with Diddy behind bars, Cassie's safety still isn't guaranteed. Just days before the trial was set to begin, witnesses started disappearing. In an interview with Piers Morgan, Big Homie CC expressed concern, warning that these witnesses are in real danger and need protection. He added, "My gut tells me we're going to see a lot of strange things happen, because after spending years in this industry, I understand how things really work."
And whenever these trials come about, the closer you get to the trial date, a lot of things start happening to remove people from the case that are going to strengthen the case for the prosecution. And I feel like we're watching that take place now with one of the male sex worker guys who provided tapes to the feds. He's disappeared. And this is similar to what happened in the Tory Lanez case, where the bodyguard whose DNA was on the weapon, he disappeared. So I expect to see a lot of strange things take place. I expect to see the defense team do a lot of steps to lighten the image of Combs. And we've been watching that take place.
From what you know about him, Sean Combs, obviously the perception of him has changed dramatically since these allegations were made and since he got charged. I mean, from everything we're seeing now, he seems a very unpleasant, nasty, violent piece of work. Is that a correct assessment?
The assessment is going to be correct. So what I've learned is whenever you see a gentleman like this from affluence and power, whenever they have an addiction to MDMA or the drug ecstasy, they call it the love drug. So he's been doing this drug for over 20 years. So that's going to lead his view skewed when it comes to sexual activity. I believe it's helped turn him into a sexual deviant. And, you know, what type of man wants to see another man urinate in his wife's mouth?
With the selection of a jury in the Sean Diddy Combs case almost complete, prosecutors are preparing for opening arguments on Monday. But they admit there's a snag. One of their key witnesses against the rapper appears to have gone missing. This comes as we learn that Combs' ex-girlfriend, who was seen on video being assaulted by the rapper, is pregnant. Here's Les Trent.
Is a key witness in the Sean Diddy Combs trial backing out? Victim number 3, as she's called, was set to testify against the music mogul. The name of victim number 3 was going to be revealed when she took the stand, but the woman has apparently gone missing, and prosecutors say they've been unable to reach her.
People just get nervous, and this person could just be nervous and just has had second thoughts.
If the prosecutor can't find this witness, how might it affect the case?
Look, I don't think it's going to have a tremendous effect. The prosecution is going to call a number of alleged victims. So look, this is just one less.
Someone else is also getting cold feet. A juror sent an email to the judge asking to be removed from the panel for issues of personal well-being.
From secret recordings to hushed-up witnesses and an expanding circle of alleged collaborators, the Diddy case is revealing more than just one man's actions. It's peeling back layers of silence, influence, and intimidation in the entertainment world. But no matter how hard some try to keep the truth buried, it always finds a way to surface. We'll keep tracking this story as it develops, covering every leak, every testimony, and every name that comes to light. If you're as shocked as we are, smash that like button, subscribe for the latest updates, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and always dig deeper.